Good morning, guys. It is Wednesday, March 27th, 2024. This is Bathrow Business. I got the coffee and I got the news. And I will get to the title of the video in just a second. We will talk about what I did on day two after our acquisition, after we bought our business. But first, I'm going to dispense some news, and I'm going to actually give you some advice that kind of violates something I said yesterday, but you'll understand in just a minute. So, major news stories, I'll get to those in just a second. Really quick, I'm going to cover gold and crypto. Gold is at 2207. Crypto, Bitcoin, I should say, is at 70,161. Both at very high numbers. Bitcoin did dip a little bit last week when we talked down to 63, but then rocketed back up. So I do give you those two indicators because I think those are powerful indicators on how the economy is doing and inflation. If you watch this channel regularly, you know I talk about gold a lot, and 2,200 per ounce is massive. Okay, I'm going to mention retail real quick, just to give you an idea of how strong retail is doing. H&M, only a single retailer, but I think this is a powerful indicator. They were up 14% in record-breaking profits. The potential operating expectation was supposed to be 1.43 billion in revenue. They blew past that into 2.08 billion in revenue. So that'll give you an idea of how strong the retail market is doing right now. In other retail news, Ikea actually buys their own bank. So this is actually a bank they have owned since about 2021 as a partial partner in it. This is a lot of times the bank that will give you the financing when you go to buy IKEA furniture. They have now fully invested and bought the bank out 100%. Why this is an interesting move, a couple weeks ago we talked about how Walmart, it was actually, bought Vizio for obviously having the hardware of the televisions, but also for Vizio TV, a platform where they can use their digital marketing in a more strategic way. So it's very interesting how a lot of these companies that are traditional retailers are diversifying with new acquisitions in order to kind of broaden their power and scope. This is definitely in the age of retail. They are trying to get more digital and more competitive when they have to go against e-commerce sites like Amazon. But both are taking very different approaches. IKEA is taking almost a fintech approach, and Vizio is taking a digital media approach. Walmart is taking a digital media approach. Another story that I thought was kind of funny that I'm probably going to use as a trade today. We'll see how this goes. This could be a GameStop situation, or it could be just a waste of money. Trump's Truth Social debuted on the Wall Street Journal yesterday. On the Wall Street Dow Jones yesterday. Sorry. Oh, I'm very sleepy today. Truth Social debuted. It IPO'd. Became valued at 7 or 8 billion at one point. And so it is down right now compared to yesterday's high of almost $80 a share. It's about $60 a share right now. I'm probably going to use this as a trade today. We'll see what comes of it. I'll let you guys know tomorrow. But just an interesting story. I stay out of the politics as much as I can, but I think that's a very interesting story to think about if you're a trader. I'm going to take advantage of it. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so main story of the day. What to do on day two after buying a business. So yesterday was day two for us of the acquisition. Yesterday was mostly a reiteration of everything I covered on day one. So I met with staff again, went over all the protocols, made sure I understood everything about the business, gave them minor tweaks. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, I talked about how on day one, you should not really be changing anything. And I would say for the first 3 to 6 months, you should not be changing anything. Now, there is a violation of that rule. If you have purchased businesses before, if you've done acquisitions before, you obviously know what you're doing. But with a lot of entrepreneurs, this is often their first step. And so they come in with these massive plans and these massive changes that they want to make. And they end up ruining what is probably already a good business, and then what could be positive trajectory, even if the business isn't highly profitable. So in the first 3 to 6 months, if you're an entrepreneur, it's best not to change anything because you're learning the subtleties of the business. So yesterday, even though I know much about the industry that we're in, this is our fifth or sixth acquisition, we still kept it slow. I mostly used it as an opportunity to make sure I understood everything. How did the day go? How is the staff adjusting to the new ownership? I talked to people, just learning their office protocols, etc., etc. Now, I will give you one thing that I did change prior to even acquiring the business. This is a major one. Now, this is a dangerous one because if you've never worked in this in a particular industry, or if this is your first acquisition, you can get into a lot of trouble with this. But I think it's one of the most important things you should do if you know what you're doing, and that is cost cutting. So when you own a business, one of the biggest drivers of revenue is rarely cost cutting, but it's usually new business or growth in sales, production, etc. However, when you're acquiring a business, it often comes with baggage. It comes with costs that you didn't actually invest in. This could be consultants, this could be certain services, this could be contracts, this could be a bunch of stuff that the business pays for that you don't think is necessary. So one of the first things we did when we came into this business was we began cutting out services we don't need. Now, if you're a new entrepreneur, you don't know what services are primary, what are necessary, and what aren't. But if you've done this before, you actually do know what the business needs on daily operations and what it doesn't. So on day one, I came in and I started looking at the profit loss statement and his income and where he's spending his money, where the business owner is spending his money. A lot of it's the routine stuff you need. Everybody needs utilities, everybody needs internet service, everybody needs electricity. However, there were a lot of services that I felt were ancillary that were not worth the time. So, for example, this office was paying about $350 a month in IT services. Well, what does this IT service do? Well, for the office, all this IT service essentially did was cloud backup. Because their IT demands were fairly low. This is a small office. It's a dental office. It's very good in production, but it doesn't require powerful IT the way a Fortune 500 company does, or even a large database does. All they do is manage their internal servers, make sure that all the data is backed up so that if there is a crash on the server, they can reclaim that data. Day-to-day stuff doesn't really matter because oftentimes it's just resetting the router and that fixes the problem. So coming into it, that was the first thing we canceled. There was no reason to keep $350 in IT services when all it does is cloud backup. You can go to carbonite.com right now and get that same cloud backup for about $3 or $4 a month. So that was one thing we cut out. The second was consultation services. So as a business owner, this is a money pit. You should avoid consultants, I feel, at all costs. I don't think they're ever useful, ever. I know this is a controversial stance. A lot of people will say, well, if your business isn't operating well, shouldn't you bring in someone that knows how to operate the business? You probably should, but that's probably not a consultant. A consultant doesn't make money from running businesses. A consultant makes money by selling you products. So the same way an online course will teach you how to make money, a consultant will teach you how to make money without actually knowing how operations work. So this current dentist was paying about $1,800 a month for a consultation services where the guys would tell him how to operate his business. This consultant has never operated a business. His entire job is teaching people how to be wealthy. This is a money pit. Never, ever, ever, ever invest in consultation services. They are always a money pit 100% of the time. I have never come across one that has ever given you advice that you couldn't figure out on your own or that you couldn't come across with ChatGPT or a YouTube service. So that was the next thing that we cut out. Furthermore, he had additional ancillary services in addition to his patient communication, his credit card processing that he simply wasn't using. He was paying for digital forms when they weren't using digital forms. He was paying an exorbitant amount for merchant processing, which was not fully being utilized either because they were using online merchant processing, but that was only about 1%, less than 1% of the people that actually pay him. Most transactions are happening in office. So those are ones that we phased out or downgraded to a simpler service. And so it was going through and looking at services like that we started to cut very, very aggressively. That is one of the first things I would recommend doing when you're coming into a new business if you know what you're doing. Now, the biggest trouble is if you end up cutting a service that could, in fact, be necessary. And as a new entrepreneur, you don't yet know the operations of the business day to day. So that's why I say when purchasing a business, in the first 3 to 6 months, you don't want to change anything because you don't know what certain piece of technology or what service is vital for that business. But you should always have the eye on cost cutting in your mind, because as a new business, it's going to be difficult for you to generate new revenue because you don't yet know how to generate new revenue. You're just coming into this thing. You don't know what is going to be your moneymaker, what's going to be your lead, and how you're going to generate massive profits yet. You're still learning the business. But what you could do is cut costs where it needs to be. So just by going through and getting rid of these ancillary services, we ended up saving about $2,000 a month. There was other stuff we cut, like quote-unquote janitorial services that weren't actually janitorial. So essentially he was paying for someone to deliver paper towels and toilet paper to the office, and that was costing about $250 a month. I don't understand how that math equates, because I could go to Costco and for $250, I could buy a 2-year supply of toilet paper and paper towels. So always look for those cost cutting. Always look at what the previous owner overspent on, because that's where your greatest savings are going to come from. That's pretty much it. That's the post of the day. I will see you guys again tomorrow morning. I hope you have a productive day.